This is the chilling story based on true events from an Indonesian boarding school, a tale of dark magic and terror that swept the nation. Get ready, because what happened next will absolutely shock you. Suddenly, in the middle of prayers, the head teacher of an Indonesian seminary mysteriously vanished. It was as if he had never been there at all. At the same time, teachers at this same seminary began to be murdered one after another in a series of highly suspicious killings. And if that wasn't terrifying enough, horrific spirits and Djinn were stalking the entire compound. The bodies of the slain teachers and these powerful Djinn were being manipulated through black magic by someone right inside the seminary. Who was this person? And why had they sacrificed their faith to choose this terrifying path of dark sorcery? To find out, you have to delve into the recently released story, which is based on a true incident that really took place at an Indonesian seminary. This story takes us back to a period when the prevalence of black magic throughout Indonesia had drastically increased. It had escalated to such a frightening degree that regular people, misled by fear, were even killing devout individuals, teachers, and even mosque imams believing them to be sorcerers. This is a story set during a war waged between a fearful group of black magic practitioners and a terrifying, dangerous cult. So, without further delay, let's jump straight into the narrative. The story opens with a scene at an Indonesian seminary. We see Ustaz Samir meeting with two other teachers who were busy looking over news articles. Samir handed them some news clippings and then left the room. The two remaining teachers were listening to the news on the radio. From the broadcast, we could gather that the situation in Indonesia was quite dire. The country was plagued by murder, robbery, and snatching. It felt like a war zone. Certain political groups were assassinating religious figures, falsely accusing them of practicing black magic. To prevent the seminary students from becoming too distressed upon learning the truth, the two teachers were burning these news articles. Suddenly, they heard a noise on the roof, as if someone was running across it. The lights in the room abruptly went out. At that very moment, a group of masked figures attacked the two teachers, brutally murdering them both. One teacher was beheaded, his head severed from his body. It was clear that these two seminary teachers had become victims of the ongoing political unrest. On that same terrifying night, we are introduced to Anisa, one of the seminary students. She was jolted awake from her sleep by a blood-curdling scream. Anisa was so frightened that she first checked her surroundings. When everything seemed normal, she tried to turn on the electric light, but it wouldn't work. So she lit a lamp, grabbed a torch and her kimmer, a veil, and was just about to leave her room. The moment she opened the door, she was confronted by a terrifying apparition. Paralyzed with fear, she slammed the door shut and began reciting the names of Allah. Just then, she felt someone approach her from behind and place a hand on her shoulder. It was her friend Noor, which only made Anisa scream louder with fear. Noor asked her what was wrong, but Anisa was too scared to speak and instinctively hid behind her friend. Noor cautiously opened the door to check, but there was no one outside. Anisa was shocked by this, and she quickly slammed the door shut again. Anisa frequently experienced such frights, so the others didn't give it much importance. The next morning, it was time for classes to begin. We see the mountainous setting of the seminary as all the students made their way to class. Noor seized the opportunity to ask Anisa what she had seen the previous night. Just as Anisa was about to reply that she had seen a devil, she collided with a male student named Satrio. Hearing the word devil, Satrio was quite surprised and wanted to ask her more about it. However, Anisa ignored him and rushed off to class with Noor. Satrio was accompanied by his best friend, Ali. As they walked to class, they noticed Ustaz Bagas putting up a news report on the notice board. This was usually the job of Ustaz Rahim, one of the teachers who had been killed the night before, a fact Satrio mentioned. However, Bagas didn't respond and simply walked away. His behavior struck Satrio as odd. From this scene, it was apparent that the students were still unaware of the previous night's tragic events. Later that day, while classes were in session, Ustaz Bagas suddenly made an announcement over the loudspeaker, instructing all students to return to their dormitories. He announced that the rest of the day's classes were cancelled, but without giving a reason, which surprised the students. In Anisa's class, Mirati instructed the students to quickly go back to the dormitory. Noor noticed that Anisa looked very ill and suggested she go to the medical room. Meanwhile, we see Satrio and Ali skipping class and secretly smoking a cigarette. They were also surprised that classes had been cancelled. From their vantage point, they saw all the male and female teachers gathering together, which struck them as suspicious. Inside, we see Ustaz Bagas was furious with Ustaz Ridwan. Two teachers had been murdered the night before, and instead of burying them, Ridwan was keeping the matter a secret. Essentially, the head teacher was not currently present at the seminary, and Ridwan wanted to wait for his return before taking any action. Since all responsibility now rested on Ridwan, Bagas warned him that if anything bad happened next, Ridwan would be held accountable. Mirati then intervened, telling them to stop arguing. Next, we see Satrio and Ali walking back towards the class area. Satrio decided to go to the medical room to see Anisa and then talk to her while Ali stood guard outside. We understand that Satrio secretly liked Anisa. He asked her about what she had mentioned earlier about seeing a devil. Anisa confirmed that she had indeed seen a devil the night before. Just as she was about to say more, Ustaz Ridwan walked in. Ridwan quickly realized that Ali and Satrio had been smoking when Satrio approached him to talk. They tried to deny it, but the packet of cigarettes tucked into Ali's cap gave them away. Ridwan spoke to them, advising them to stay away from such things, referencing the teachings of the Quran. Satrio accepted the reprimand, but then he directly asked Ridwan about the two teachers who had died last night, mentioning that he hadn't seen them all day. Ridwan was at a loss for words. Ali, thinking Ridwan might be angry, quickly led Satrio away. Ridwan then advised Anisa to be careful before leaving. That night, we see Satrio. He felt strongly that something was very wrong at the seminary. Most of the students who had gone home hadn't returned. Furthermore, the absence of the two teachers all day raised his suspicions. And, of course, Anisa had claimed to see a devil the previous night. Ali, however, disagreed. He wondered where a devil would even come from at a seminary and told Satrio to stop worrying about it. But Satrio's suspicions were strong, so he set out to gather more information. Meanwhile, Anisa had fallen asleep in the medical room. She woke up to find the room plunged into darkness. Just as she was about to leave, the window next to her opened on its own. Anisa was startled. Frightened, she closed the window and was about to leave when the room door suddenly swung open by itself. From behind the curtain, she saw that terrifying entity entering the room. The woman walked across the entire room, but as she reached the far end of the curtain, she vanished. Anisa was completely terrified. She quickly ran out of the room. As she did, the woman placed a hand on her shoulder. Anisa began to run, but the woman reappeared in front of her. The woman wouldn't leave her alone. Anisa managed to find a spot to hide. While hiding, she noticed something strange. In the darkness, she saw someone burying what looked like an amulet or charm in the ground. Anisa realized that someone was probably practicing black magic. At the same time, Ustaz Samir was seen visiting the room where the bodies of the two deceased teachers were being held. He felt terribly sad for them, which is why he was there. However, the light in that room wouldn't turn on, which made him feel even worse. He went to the bodies and began to weep, believing they were suffering because they hadn't been buried quickly. He prayed for the head teacher to return to the seminary soon. Suddenly, we see someone from the seminary beginning to perform black magic. This black magic was so horrifying that this person killed a gecko and ate its head. Then they began to perform the black magic using its blood. Next, they picked up 2 dolls. As soon as one doll was dipped into the blood, one of the corpses inside the room suddenly sat up and looked at Ustaz Samir, saying, "Everyone is dead." When the other doll was dipped into the blood, the second corpse sat up and said the same thing. Samir was so terrified that he backed away and closed his eyes. When he opened them, the 2 bodies had vanished. He couldn't see the bodies in front of him anymore. He tried to rush out of the room, but the door was locked. Then he heard the 2 corpses screaming from the other side of the door. The black magic practitioner continued their dark ritual. Whatever they did to the dolls, the 2 corpses mimicked. When the black magic user cut off the head of one doll, the head of one of the corpses was also severed. The other corpse then came towards Samir. Samir was so distraught by this sight that he gave up and sat down right there. The black magic practitioner then sprinkled some blood onto the second doll. In response, the corpse poured something from its mouth onto Samir. Meanwhile, Anisa was still running away from the entity. As she fled, she suddenly encountered Satrio, who asked her what was going on. At that moment, Samir burst out of the room, screaming. Hearing his screams, Anisa and Satrio rushed over to him. Samir was covered in blood and screaming, completely out of his mind. Seeing this, Anisa and Satrio began calling for the others. Samir was taken to the medical room. Other students, including Ali and Noor, arrived there. Anisa suggested that it might be some kind of curse. Noor countered that faithful people were immune to curses. Anisa then reminded her that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had also been cursed. Noor clarified that the Prophet was subjected to black magic. Anisa agreed, saying she was talking about black magic. She mentioned that she often read books related to it, which is why she knew a lot about the subject. Just then, Bagas arrived and scolded them all, telling them to return to the dorm immediately. All the students left for the dorm. Bagas was stunned to see Samir in such a state. That same night, the head teacher returned to the seminary. Everyone gathered to explain the situation to the head teacher. The 2 corpses were now missing, which deeply worried the head teacher. He questioned Ridwan, who was in charge, about why he hadn't buried the 2 bodies. Did he not know that black magic could be performed using corpses? Furthermore, it was the duty of an ideal Muslim to bury another Muslim's body as quickly as possible. Because of his mistake, the deceased teachers didn't even get a funeral prayer. Ridwan listened silently, his head bowed. Bagaz then started blaming Ridwan for Samir's condition as well. The head teacher stopped him, telling them not to point fingers at each other. What was done was done. He asked how much the students knew. They knew nothing about the deaths of the 2 teachers, only about Samir's condition. Hearing this, the head teacher instructed them to prepare for prayer. They would all pray together that night, with the head teacher himself leading as the imam. During the prayer, when they prostrated for the first time, a long time passed. The imam showed no sign of coming up from prostration. The others didn't know what to do. Satrio slowly raised his head to see what was happening. He saw a corpse wrapped in a shroud standing right behind the head teacher. It was one of the 2 murdered teachers' bodies. Satrio was horrified by the sight. The others then got up. They didn't see the corpse, but the head teacher himself had vanished. They couldn't find any trace of him. Everyone was stunned. In this situation, all the teachers decided that for the night, all the students would sleep together in the main hall so they could keep an eye on everyone. All the students gathered their belongings and moved to the hall. A large curtain was hung to separate the male and female students. Satrio felt that his suspicions were confirmed. Something was definitely happening at the seminary, and the atmosphere was no longer safe. Ali suggested they should run away. Satrio didn't answer and lay down. One by one, everyone went to sleep. Ridwan then turned off the lights and left. As soon as he left, Satrio got up and woke up Ali. He didn't tell Ali where he was going, but insisted that Ali come with him. Satrio took him to the office room. He tried to call his home using the telephone, but the phone line was dead, so he couldn't contact anyone. While there, they found news clippings. From these, they learned about the unstable situation in Indonesia for the first time, which shocked them. At that moment, Ali found a list. The list contained the names of people who were likely targets for assassination, teachers whose lives were at risk. Satrio's father's name was on that list. Seeing this, Satrio became extremely worried about his parents. As they were talking about it, a teacher walked in. Suspicious, he checked the office room. Satrio and Ali were hiding behind a table, so the teacher didn't see them. Early the next morning, Anisa was woken up by some noise. As she woke, she saw that the whole hall was empty. No one was there except her and Noor. Noor was sitting facing the other way. Anisa asked her about this, but Noor was acting strangely. The next moment, Noor advanced towards her terrifyingly. It turned out this was not Noor, but the evil entity, which kept repeating, "Everyone is dead," to Anisa. Anisa was completely distraught by this sight. Then she woke up to Noor calling her name. Even after waking up, the dream left her very frightened. Noor tried to calm her down. Anisa quickly got up and prepared to go to the washroom. But as soon as she left the hall, the entity called her name again. The next moment, the entity came right next to her ear and told her to go to the head teacher's room. Anisa was surprised. The head teacher had been missing since the previous night, so she didn't take it seriously. Meanwhile, Satrio went to see Ustaz Samir. Ali was tasked with cleaning Ustaz Samir. Satrio told Ali that he also felt Samir was a victim of a curse or black magic. He felt he shouldn't delay any longer. If he left now, he could reach home before evening. Ali told him not to be hasty, as they had no idea what the situation was like outside. Satrio then told Ali that he was lucky because his parents lived abroad. But Satrio's parents might be in danger, so he was leaving immediately to get permission. Suddenly, Ustaz Samir sat up and stared at Ali menacingly. Ali was startled. Samir clearly looked abnormal. He abruptly stood up on the bed and began saying, "Everyone is dead." Repeating this, he aggressively advanced to attack Ali. Ali quickly ran out of the room and closed the door. On the other side, Anisa was following the entity's instructions and went to the front of the head teacher's room. The entity vanished, and Anisa reached the door. The entity suddenly appeared next to her ear again and told her to look inside. The door was closed, so Anisa tried to look through the gap. However, she didn't see anything unusual inside. Because of this, she didn't give it much thought and went to the side of the bathroom. There, she found something resembling an amulet between some bricks, which surprised her. At that moment, she looked up. She saw Ustaz Baga standing there, and in his hand were the same items used for amulets and talismans. He placed them there and left, which astonished Anisa. Just then, Noor arrived. Anisa showed her the amulet-like object. Noor immediately told her to throw it away. Anisa warned that it might cause something terrible. But Noor argued that believing in it was shirk, idolatry. Saying this, she took the amulet and tossed it away. Noor then started washing her clothes. While hanging them behind another sheet, she saw a terrifying dark figure. But when she pulled the sheet away, there was nothing there. So she dismissed it. As she went to hang another piece of clothing, her eyes suddenly started itching. Not just her eyes, but her hands, feet, and face were all in pain. Seeing her flailing from a distance, Anisa ran to her and asked what was wrong. Noor said her eyes were hurting. The next moment, as she opened her eyes, she couldn't see anything. Everything was darkness. Anisa was at a loss for what to do. Suddenly, blood began to pour from Noor's eyes. Then blood, followed by a large piece of wire, also came out of her mouth. After pulling it out, something went towards her eyes. Using her hand, she pulled out a large nail from her eyes. This happened to both eyes. She thrashed around in pain. Seeing her best friend suffering like this, Anisa was helpless. Thrashing, Noor stumbled backward. As a result, she reached the well. She was about to fall into the well, but Anisa managed to grab her. Anisa tried desperately to save her best friend. But then, a terrifying force inside the well grabbed Noor's leg and started pulling. Anisa couldn't hold on to her anymore, and Noor fell into the well. Anisa screamed and wept. After this incident, Ustaz Bagas was even angrier at Ridwan. He had been saying from the start that all the students should be sent home, but Ridwan wanted to keep everything under his control. A strong argument broke out between Ridwan and Bagas. Ridwan believed Bagas should be patient. The responsibility he was handling was not easy. It was easy to point fingers when not in his position. On top of that, there was still no trace of the head teacher. Rati then stopped them. Rati believed that someone within the seminary might be committing these murders. They had to find the person responsible for all of this. Only then would all the problems be solved. They continued to ponder this. That night, the students were kept in the hall again, where they were all performing zikr, remembrance of God. Suddenly, some students began to act strangely. They abruptly started reciting the zikr, saying, "Everyone is dead, everyone is dead." Within moments, the situation spiraled out of control. The eyes of the students who were possessed by Djinn turned white. They thrashed and started attacking the other students. Even with many people trying, they couldn't calm them down. Blood oozed from their eyes and mouths. Everyone was deeply concerned by this sight. Somehow, that night passed. Ridwan managed to calm the students down. However, they were quite injured, and the other students were also wounded. Gradually, the possessed students regained consciousness. Seeing this, Ridwan said they needed first aid. All the medicine was in the medical room, so Anisa, Satrio, and Ali set off to fetch it. Anisa went inside, but Ali was afraid to enter because Eustace Samir was inside, so he told Satrio he would wait outside. As they were taking the medicine, we see Eustace Samir standing next to the cabinet, chewing on pieces of glass, causing blood to cover his mouth. He called out to Satrio and asked how his father was. Hearing this, Satrio lost his composure. He immediately rushed out to go to his parents. Anisa followed him, trying to stop and reason with him. Seeing them leave, Ali tried to look inside. He saw Eustace Samir lying on his bed looking at Ali menacingly and laughing. Ali was even more panicked and quickly ran back toward the hall. Anisa tried to explain to Satrio that this might be a trick by the devil. If he went outside, he might be in danger. He might be safe here, but he could die outside. Satrio replied that if death was his fate now, then so be it. At least he could see his family before he died. Anisa asked if he was running away out of fear. Satrio responded that if she thought that, then she could. But his family needed him. Anisa countered that the seminary also needed him. But Satrio wouldn't listen and immediately left. We see the environment outside. Bodies were strewn everywhere on roads, in canals and ditches. Teachers' bodies were hanging from trees. Many innocent people who never practiced black magic but tried to serve people on the path of Allah had become victims of this. Satrio cautiously made his way through this pile of corpses toward his home to save his father. We see a scene at his house. His mother was preparing food for his father. At that moment, we see the killers on the roof. The next moment, when his mother brought the food to his father, she saw that her husband wasn't there, but his prayer cap was on the floor. Right then, his father's body dropped and hung from above. Seeing this, she began to cry hysterically. Satrio, unaware of this, was still heading home to save his father. Suddenly, he saw the killers. They'd brutally murdered a man right in front of him. They spotted Satrio, so he quickly started to run away. He was a seminary student and the son of a teacher. He knew very well that if he was caught, he wouldn't survive. While running, he fell into a ditch from a high place. There were many bodies inside the ditch. Satrio used his wits and hid himself beneath the corpses. The killer then came there. They didn't find Satrio, but they started hitting the surrounding corpses. Satrio still didn't make a sound. Meanwhile, back at the seminary, Anisa was recalling her childhood. We learned that these events were not happening arbitrarily. At that time, the influence of black magic had increased greatly in Indonesia. The effect of black magic was in every home. Even Anisa's own father wanted to sacrifice the baby and her mother soon so he could become rich through black magic. But her mother vehemently refused, and because of this, she killed herself right there. Anisa had witnessed this scene herself. Here, we discover another secret. The entity or evil spirit that Anisa saw from the beginning might not be an evil spirit, but the Karen Djinn of her mother. This is because it looked exactly like her mother. It had been around Anisa since childhood, guiding her. The next morning we see a hospital scene. The injured were being treated in this environment. Satrio was kept in the morgue with the other bodies. He managed to pull himself out of the body bag. He felt terrible seeing the state of all these innocent people. But at the moment, he couldn't think about these people. He had to think about his family. So, he quickly put on a jacket he found there and set off for home. The student's condition was quite bad. Anisa was sitting outside, pondering all this. Just then, Eustace Bagas arrived after being out all night. Anisa had suspected him from the beginning, so she went to him and directly asked him where he had been the previous night when all the students were being possessed. Bagas replied that he was with the police, searching for the head teacher. Then, Anisa said she had seen him near the well when Noor died. What was he doing there? Hearing this question, Eustace Bagas was startled. When he refused to answer, Anisa became very angry. Amirati then arrived. She calmed Anisa down. Anisa tried to tell her that Eustace Bagas was behind all this. But Rati felt that since Noor's death, Anisa was overthinking all these events. So, she told Anisa to calm her mind and to trust the teachers. She said they were all trying to keep them safe. Rati then asked Anisa to go and bring some hot water from the kitchen. The scene moves to Satrio. The situation in his village was very bad. Bodies were being brought to the graveyard, but they were not being buried. This was because the general public believed those who were killed were black magic practitioners. So they were not allowed to be buried in the graveyard, nor were they allowed a funeral prayer. Seeing all this, Satrio reached his house. His mother was startled to hear a knock on the door. She was afraid to open it. When she saw it was her son, she quickly pulled him inside and hugged him, asking why he had come here. When Satrio asked about his father, his mother showed him the body lying in front of them. His mother had been guarding the body since the night before. Seeing the condition of the body, Satrio was completely devastated. He wanted to arrange for his father's burial right away, but his mother stopped him. If anyone outside found out, Satrio could also be attacked. Not only that, but black magic practitioners were taking the newly dead bodies to perform horrifying black magic rituals. It was like a war between hunters and black magic users. Both sides were equally terrifying. Satrio's mother desperately didn't want her husband's body to be used for black magic. Satrio then suggested they bury his father in the backyard where no one would know. He would do the work himself in the dark of night. He didn't delay. That night he buried his father and planted a banana tree there so no one would suspect anything. He sat there crying, saying a final goodbye to his father. Although he couldn't save his father, he resolved to protect his mother. So he wanted to take his mother back to the seminary with him. While talking to his mother, he learned why his father had become a victim of this. Basically, his father sometimes tried to help people using Islamic methods. He had treated many people, and because of this, people started believing that he was secretly practicing black magic. That's how his good deeds resulted in this terrible death. When Satrio asked her to go with him, she refused. She wanted to stay in the house and guard it, and also guard her husband's grave. That way, when everything calmed down later, Satrio would have a place to return to. Otherwise, people would seize everything. She told Satrio to return to the seminary that night. His future was there. Saying this, she convinced Satrio. Satrio accepted his mother's words and set off for the seminary. Meanwhile, Anisa went to the kitchen to fetch water. The woman working in the kitchen took the bucket from her to get the water. Anisa tried to see what was being cooked in the pot. But when she lifted the lid of the pot, she was horrified. Inside was a severed human head. She was extremely frightened. At that moment, the kitchen woman came up to her. Both her eyes were completely white. She had probably also been subjected to black magic. Under its influence, she plunged a knife into her own throat right in front of Anisa. Seeing this, Anisa screamed in terror. At that time, Amirati was treating Eustace Samir. Suddenly, the room light went out. A few moments later, Anisa arrived there, calling for her. She was surprised not to find Rati there. Just then, she heard some noise coming from the next bed. She went there and pulled back the curtain and was horrified. Amirati was completely under the control of the devil. She had a pair of scissors in her hand. She terrifyingly began to cut off Rati's fingers one by one right in front of Anisa. Anisa was panic-stricken. She tried to run away, but the door closed on its own. Unable to open the door, she tried to escape through the window. Just then, Rati came and attacked her. Eustace Samir was also sitting there in a possessed state. Rati was trying to hit her with the scissors. Anisa desperately tried to defend herself. Finally, she reached the door and started reciting Ayatul Kursi, a verse from the Quran. This caused the devil inside Rati to suffer. Blood was pouring from its eyes and mouth as it listened to Ayatul Kursi. It couldn't bear it, so it took the scissors and plunged them into its own ears. As a result, Rati died instantly. Anisa was devastated by her death. At this moment, she was completely alone. Satrio was gone, and Noor and Rati were dead. She didn't know what to do. At that moment, her mother, Karen Djinn, again came to her ear and told her to go to the head teacher's room. This time, Anisa decided she would definitely check inside. The door was still locked, so she tried to look inside through the gap behind. She saw something inside that frightened her greatly. She immediately ran to Eustace Bagas and told him to check the head teacher's room. Bagas completely dismissed Anisa's words. He felt Anisa was unfairly accusing someone. Just then, Eustace Reedwin also arrived. He, too, felt that checking the head teacher's room would be inappropriate. It was his private room, and there could be many things inside. He wasn't present at the moment. However, Satrio returned at that moment. He argued that Anisa was right. They shouldn't overlook anything right now. If the head teacher were here, he would probably say the same thing. Bagas and Ridwan couldn't say anything. Satrio and a few other students followed Anisa to the head teacher's room. Anisa was already trying to break the lock. Satrio somehow managed to smash the lock with a stone. As soon as he entered, they were horrified. There was a rotten smell inside, and in one corner were all the tools for black magic. This meant that the person practicing black magic at the seminary was doing it in this room. Anisa smashed an earthenware pot that was there. Just then, Ustaz Bagas arrived. Anisa started questioning him, saying she had seen him twice hiding black magic items. Bagas replied that he had found those things nearby and was trying to remove them. He was trying to protect everyone. Besides, the key to this room was with Ridwan as well as him. Why were they only suspecting him? However, the students had already assumed Ustaz Bagas was the culprit, so they took him and tied him up. Given the current situation, they couldn't trust Ridwan blindly either. So Satrio and Anisa decided to go and check Ridwan's room. Satrio told his 3 remaining friends to check the rooms of all the other teachers and ummis. Just then, the hall lights went out. Seeing this, they didn't delay. Telling everyone to be careful, they left. As they left, one of the 3 friends suddenly heard a whispering sound. Following it led him straight to the headless corpse. Seeing this, he screamed. Hearing his scream, his 2 friends started to come toward him. But then, another corpse appeared in front of him. That corpse attacked him and brutally murdered him. When the 2 friends saw him in this condition, they were shattered. They quickly took him to the hall. There they asked for Ustaz Bagas's help. When Ustaz Bagas was untied, he confirmed that the student had died. At that moment, the lit lamps went out on their own. The students were terribly frightened. They didn't know what to do. Ustaz Bagas quickly told everyone to close all the doors. The students did so. Meanwhile, we see Satrio and Anisa. The 2 had gone to the front of Ustaz Ridwan's room. They were trying to open the lock of that room. Finally, Satrio managed to break the lock by hitting it with a stone. He then entered the room, where everything seemed normal. Just then, the door suddenly closed on its own. Anisa tried to open the door from the outside, and Satrio also tried, but the door wouldn't budge. At that moment, Anisa's eyes fell on the room behind. Her mother's Djinn was standing there. Seeing her like this, Anisa realized there must be something inside. So, she left Satrio there and went to the front of that room. She tried to look inside through the small gap in the door. She was horrified. Someone was sitting inside, practicing black magic. She quickly tried to leave, but the man opened the door with a gesture of his hand, and Anisa fell inside. Here, we see the man holding a doll. He started controlling Anisa with the doll. Anisa slowly floated in the air. She had no control over her own body. The man slammed her against one wall after another. This man was none other than Ustaz Ridwan. Yes, Ustaz Ridwan, hidden behind the mask of a good person, was behind all of this. He had been doing all of this from the beginning. He was actually a devil worshipper. When Anisa asked what their crime was, Ridwan replied that their only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He had killed the 2 teachers on the first night and made the head teacher disappear for some satanic purpose. Essentially, he wanted to summon the devil into this world to bring about a terrible judgment day. And the other black magic practitioners were also working toward this goal. This meant that the hunters who were roaming around to stop them were not roaming for no reason. Both sides were truly dangerous. Ridwan was hurting Anisa by hitting her doll. Anisa was in intense pain. When Anisa tried to recite Ayatul Kursi, Ustaz Ridwan told her it wouldn't help. He was about to include Anisa in the group of the dead very soon. Saying this, he spat blood onto some dolls. As a result, the corpses of the dead in the seminary were seen. They were now under Ridwan's control. They were circling the hall, which terrified the students inside. Ustaz Bagas told everyone to gather and pray to defeat this evil force. They all gathered and started reciting Ayatul Kursi and sought refuge with Almighty Allah. At that moment, the surrounding doors started opening on their own. All the corpses were ready to enter. In this terrifying situation, Ustaz Bagas didn't know how to save the students. He simply sought refuge with Almighty Allah with all his heart. Meanwhile, Satrio managed to open the door of his room somehow. He then went to the room where Ustaz Ridwan was. Eustace Ridwan was not ready for him because he hadn't made a doll of Satrio. So, Satrio started attacking him. Anisa was still stuck on the wall. Satrio tried to stop Ridwan continuously. At one point, Ridwan tried to kill him, but Satrio somehow pushed him away. Anisa then told him to smash the black magic pot that was there. Satrio seized the opportunity and slammed the pot down hard, smashing it. As a result, the influence of all the black magic was broken. Anisa fell to the ground. At the same time, the corpses were deactivated and slumped to the ground. Eustace Baga sighed in relief. He thanked Almighty Allah. Satrio quickly took Anisa out of the room. Once outside, he locked the door so Ridwan couldn't escape. Just then, Eustace Bagas and Ali arrived. Before they could tell them everything, they saw a fireball streaking down from the sky toward the room. Immediately, all the black magic items inside caught fire. The fire surrounded Ridwan. This seemed like a scourge sent from Almighty Allah. Ridwan was scorched by the scourge. His entire body melted. At the same time, all the black magic items were destroyed in the fire. And as a result, everything gradually returned to normal. Eustace Samir also recovered. All those who were killed in this incident were buried one by one next to the seminary. However, from the conversation between Satrio and Anisa, we learn that they still haven't found any trace of the head teacher. They only prayed for the safety of the teacher, and also prayed that such an incident would never happen again. Satrio got up and left, but Anisa remained sitting there. She was with her mother's Karen Djinn. She was no longer afraid of this Djinn because she knew it was there to help her. And with that, the story ends. This story is truly taken from a real event. A time really came in Indonesia when the influence of these black magic practitioners increased significantly. And to reduce this horror, certain hunter groups took action. Even innocent people were among their victims. And during that terrible period, such an incident occurred at a seminary. Although the names of the seminary and the people involved in the real event have been changed for our presentation, the incident itself truly happened. So, let me know in the comments how you felt about this story based on a real event. And if you are new to our channel, please be sure to subscribe.